Please, Mom, you need to help us with the baby money. That was the phrase that changed everything. I remember it like it was yesterday, standing there in the hallway of my own home, my heart heavy as I overheard a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. Ryan, my only son, was in the living room with Melissa, his wife, and what I heard through the partially open door destroyed the last vestiges of the illusion I had carried for 43 years. She fell for it completely, Melissa giggled. Softly. Transferred the $50,000 without even questioning it. Stupid old woman. Before I continue, tell me in the comments which city you're reading this story from, and if you've ever experienced something similar with family. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss stories like this one. My name is Eleanor. I'm 67 years old, and throughout my life, I believed that a mother's love could transform any heart. I raised Ryan alone after his father abandoned us when he was only 2 years old. I worked as a seamstress in New York City, stayed up nights to pay for private school, bought designer clothes so he wouldn't feel inferior to his classmates. Every sacrifice was worth it when I saw his smile. It's a good thing she believes this pregnancy story, Ryan replied, and I could imagine his cynical smile. Melissa, you're a genius. That fake belly looked perfect. My world collapsed. I leaned against the wall, my legs weak, trying to process what I had just discovered. The pregnancy that had made me cry with joy, the grandchild I already loved. All a lie, an elaborate scheme to rob me. How did I get to this point? How did my own son become this monster? I remember when Ryan was little. At 7, he would hug me and say, "Mommy, when I grow up, I'll buy you a huge house." At 15, he no longer hugged me. At 20, he only showed up when he needed money. And I, blinded by maternal love, always justified it. It's his age. His friends are a bad influence. He'll change. That night, lying in my bed on the Upper East Side, I couldn't sleep. The words echoed in my mind like stab wounds. I thought of all the times I defended him, paid his gambling debts, lied to myself saying it was just a phase. I remembered the day he met Melissa 5 years ago. From the first moment, something about her bothered me. Perhaps it was the calculating way her eyes scanned my house, appraising each object. The next day, they came over for Sunday lunch. Melissa entered, showing off her fake belly, caressing it with feigned tenderness. "Mrs. Eleanor, we have a wonderful proposal," she announced, helping herself to more rice. "Since the apartment is too small for the baby, we thought about coming to live with you. This house is so big." I swallowed hard. The Upper East Side house, valued at $2 million, was my only security. My parents' inheritance, where I grew up, where I raised Ryan, every corner held memories. "It would be great for the baby to have Grandma nearby," Ryan added without looking me in the eyes. He could never look me in the eyes when he lied. And "You! What would you have done in my place if you discovered your own son was deceiving you like this?" I took a deep breath and forced a smile. Years of disappointment had taught me to hide pain. "Of course, Tears. Come live with me." The greedy gleam in Melissa's eyes was immediate. Ryan continued eating, indifferent to my suffering. At that moment, something died inside me. Not a mother's love, for that is incurable, but the hope of being loved back. During the following weeks, the couple moved in. Suddenly, Ryan and Melissa transformed into the perfect children. They helped around the house, did the shopping, talked with me at dinner. An Oscar-worthy performance. I observed everything in silence, noticing the complicit glances, the whispers in corners. One afternoon, while cleaning the library, I found papers hidden among the books. It was a draft of a house transfer contract. At the bottom, practice. Attempts at my signature. My heart froze. How far would they go? I decided to play their game. I pretended not to notice their manipulations, smiled at their lies, acted like the naive little old lady they thought I was. But inside, a storm was brewing. 43 years of unrequited love, wasted sacrifices, destroyed illusions. All this transformed into fuel for something I didn't even know existed in me, a thirst for justice. I began cooking special dishes for them, stews with excess salt, extra fatty foods, sweets loaded with sugar. They devoured everything with pleasure, without suspecting that each meal was carefully calculated to affect their health in the long term. It wasn't poison. It was just the natural consequence of their own excesses. "Mrs. Eleanor, your cooking is getting better every day," Melissa complimented, helping herself to thirds. "It's Grandma's love," I replied sweetly, watching her fill her plate. One night, Ryan left his laptop open in the living room. The temptation was irresistible. What I found left me breathless. Searches about life insurance, how to simulate domestic accidents, about substances undetectable in autopsies. My own son was planning to kill me. Sitting there in the darkness of dawn, a solitary tear rolled down my face. Not from fear. I discovered that when you lose everything, even fear disappears. It was a tear of mourning for the son I thought I had raised, for the mother I had been, for the love I had wasted. But it was also a tear of liberation, because at that moment, looking at those macabre searches, I knew exactly what to do. If they wanted to play dirty, I would play even dirtier. After all, you don't live 67 years on the Upper East Side without learning a thing or two about survival. The next day, Ryan invited me for a hike in the Adirondack Mountains. "It'll be great for you, Mom. Fresh air, exercise." I promptly accepted. He was surprised by my enthusiasm. After all, I had always hated hiking. What he didn't know was that I had taken a first aid and wilderness survival course 3 years ago, when I still had hopes of traveling the world. While preparing my backpack for the trail, I reflected on the path that brought me here. Every mother knows the pain of seeing a child drift away, but how many know the agony of discovering that this child wishes for her death? It's a special kind of hell reserved for those who loved too much. I stored granola bars in my backpack, special, bars that I prepared with the same care I had always dedicated to feeding my son. This time, however, the secret ingredient wasn't love. It was justice. Saturday morning dawned clear, that May. Ryan and Melissa picked me up early, pretending excitement about the family outing. During the drive to the Adirondacks, I observed, through the rearview mirror, how they exchanged meaningful glances. Melissa constantly adjusted the backpack on her lap, too protective of what she carried inside. "You're going to love the view from up there, Mrs. Eleanor," she said, turning to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Ryan chose a very easy trail. Easy. Isolated would be the more appropriate word. We arrived at the trailhead around 8 in the morning. The parking lot was practically empty, exactly as they had planned. I got out of the car with studied calmness, feigning the tiredness of a 67-year-old woman. In truth, my muscles were as tense as those of a panther ready to attack. The ascent began gently. Ryan led the way, occasionally looking back to check if I was keeping up. Melissa remained behind me, strategically positioned, I realized. We chatted about trivial things, the weather, the trees, the birds. A perfect family on a perfect outing. After an hour of hiking, we reached a clearing with a view of the city. New York stretched out below, wrapped in morning mist. This was when Ryan suggested a break. "Let's rest a bit, Mom. I even brought wine to celebrate." "Celebrate what?" I asked, feigning innocence. "Life, of course. The family together." He took a bottle of red wine and 3 plastic cups from his backpack. "Your favorite Argentine Malbec." I watched as he poured the wine with slightly trembling hands. The cup he offered me was served first, separately. Melissa received hers with exaggerated naturalness. A toast, Ryan raised his cup, to my mother, who always took care of me. The irony of those words burned more than any poison. I brought the cup to my lips, moistened them with the wine, but didn't swallow. Years of serving wine at dinners had taught me how to pretend to drink. Discreetly, I let the liquid flow back into the cup while they drank theirs. "Delicious," I commented, placing the cup on a rock. "But this hike has made me hungry. I brought granola bars for us." I took from my backpack the bars I had carefully prepared the night before. The same sedative I found hidden in their medicine cabinet, ground and mixed into the cereal mass. I offered one to each of them. Their honey granola. I made them yesterday especially for today. They accepted without hesitation. After all, what could a harmless little old lady do? They bit into the bars with appetite, while I pretended to eat mine, discreetly storing the pieces in my pocket. We continued the ascent. After another half-hour of hiking, we reached the main lookout, a cliff with a breathtaking view and a fatal 50-meter drop. The perfect place for an accident. That's when I noticed the first signs. Melissa staggered slightly, bringing her hand to her forehead. "I'm feeling a little dizzy," she murmured. "Must be the altitude," Ryan responded, but his voice also sounded slurred. He blinked several times, trying to focus his vision. In minutes, both were disoriented. Melissa was the first to fall to her knees, followed by Ryan. They looked at me with growing confusion, understanding slowly dawning on their faces. "Mom, what did you do?" I completed, dropping the fragile old lady mask. "The same thing you were planning to do to me, with one difference. I don't intend to kill you." I crouched next to Ryan, who was struggling to keep his eyes open. For the first time in years, I looked directly into his eyes. I know everything. The fake pregnancy, the plan to steal my house, the life insurance, even about the poison in the wine. The terror on his face was palpable. Melissa tried to speak, but only managed to babble incomprehensible sounds before passing out. Ryan resisted a few more seconds. "Mom, please." "Please, what? That I forgive you? That I pretend I didn't see the searches on your computer about how to kill me?" My voice was calm, devoid of anger. "You'll sleep for a few hours. When you wake up, you'll be alive. Consider this my last demonstration of maternal love." He passed out before I finished speaking. I stood there, observing the two unconscious figures, waiting to feel guilt, remorse, anything. But there was only emptiness and relief. I picked up my backpack and began to descend the trail alone. There was no rush. They would remain unconscious for at least 4 hours. Enough time for me to return home and execute the next phase of my plan. I was almost at the parking lot when I heard the moans. A man had fallen near a tree, his leg bleeding profusely. Without thinking twice, I ran to him. "What happened?" "Slipped. I think I cut it on a rock." He was pale, sweating cold. I quickly assessed the wound. Deep, but it hadn't hit any arteries. I took the first aid kit from my backpack that I always carried. "I'm a retired nurse," I lied. "I'll do an emergency dressing, but you need to go to the hospital." I worked quickly, cleaning and bandaging the wound. The man watched me with growing gratitude. "You saved my life, ma'am. How can I thank you?" "No need. Anyone would do the same." "No, they wouldn't. My name is Edward Sullivan. I'm CEO of Sullivan Investments. Please take my card. If you need anything at all, contact me." I kept the card out of politeness, not imagining that encounter would change everything. I helped him to his car and made sure he could drive to the hospital. I returned home by taxi. I had much to do before Ryan and Melissa woke up. First, I called the police. Hello? I'd like to report 2 lost hikers on the Stone Face Trail. Yes, they're fine, just resting, but they might need help getting down. No, I prefer not to identify myself. Next, I began reorganizing the house. I gathered all the couple's belongings and packed them in suitcases. I called a locksmith and changed all the locks. Finally, I went to the bank. I'd like to cancel my son's power of attorney and change all my banking access. The manager attended to me promptly. While she processed the changes, I reflected on the next steps. The game was just beginning. When I returned home in the late afternoon, I found 47 missed calls from Ryan and 23 from Melissa. I ignored them all. Around 8 in the evening, I heard their car in the garage. Furious knocking on the door followed. "Mom, open this door! What does this mean?" I opened the second-floor window. "Your suitcases are in the garden. Take them and leave my property." "You can't do this. We live here." "Not legally, and I suggest you leave before I call the police." Ryan's face was red with anger. Melissa, beside him, looked like a cornered beast. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I doubt it, but you will." I watched from the window as they collected their suitcases and left. For the first time in 43 years, I slept deeply, without the weight of guilt or worry. The next day, I received an unexpected call. "Mrs. Eleanor, this is Edward Sullivan. You helped me yesterday on the trail. I'd like to invite you for coffee as a thank you." I hesitated. My experience with people had made me cautious, but something in his voice seemed genuine. "I accept. Where shall we meet?" The coffee turned into lunch. Edward was a widower, 2 years younger than me and surprisingly interesting. We talked about literature, travel, music. For the first time in years, I laughed genuinely. "You know," he said, stirring his coffee, "yesterday wasn't a coincidence. I rarely hike alone, but something compelled me to go. I think fate wanted us to meet. And do you believe in fate? Or do you think we create our own luck?" In the following months, we developed a careful friendship. Edward never tried to pressure me or rush anything. He was just there, present, offering companionship without demanding anything in return. Ryan and Melissa, on the other hand, intensified their attacks. They tried to legally contest my right to the house, spread lies about my mental health, even hired a lawyer to allege I was senile. That's when I decided to reveal my trump card. I invited Ryan for a final conversation on neutral territory, my lawyer's office. "Son," I began, watching him shrink at the word, "there's something you need to know, something I've kept all these years." "What is it now? Another one of your schemes?" I handed him the envelope I had kept for 4 decades. I watched as he opened it and read the contents, his face changing from red to white in seconds. This can't be true." "It is true. You're not my biological son. You're the son of my ex-husband and his mistress. When he ran away with her and abandoned her pregnant, she appeared at my door. She died in childbirth. I could have given you up for adoption, but I chose to raise you as my own." Ryan stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. His hands trembled holding the document. "Why? Why would you do that?" "Because I believed in love. Because I thought love could overcome blood ties. I was wrong." The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in years, I saw tears in the eyes of the man I had raised as a son. "I'm sorry." "Are you? For what exactly? For trying to kill me? For robbing me? For wasting 43 years of my life? For everything. Mom, Don't call me Mom. You lost that right when you planned my death." I stood up to leave. At the door, I turned one last time. "The money you took for the trip will be collected. With interest. My lawyer will be in touch. I left without looking back, leaving him there with the truth that would destroy him more than any poison. Life went on. Ryan and Melissa separated shortly after. Apparently she had no interest in a bankrupt husband with no inheritance. I heard he was hospitalized months later, his liver compromised by alcohol and poor diet. I didn't visit him. Edward and I continued meeting. One day during a walk in Central Park, he held my hand. "Eleanor, I know you've been through a lot. I'm not asking for anything beyond the chance to be part of your new life." I looked at our intertwined hands. They were old hands marked by time, but there was warmth in them. Real warmth. "You already are," I replied simply. It wasn't an overwhelming romance from a soap opera. It was something better. A real connection between two people who had learned to value the present more than the past. 6 months had passed since that devastating conversation in the lawyer's office. Life followed its course, but the waves of that moment continued to reverberate. I received sparse news about Ryan's through acquaintances. He lost his job, was evicted from his apartment. Melissa sued him for child support for a pregnancy that never existed. The irony didn't escape me. On a November afternoon, while watering the orchids on the veranda, the intercom rang. "Mrs. Eleanor, there's a gentleman here saying he's your son." My first instinct was to refuse, but something, perhaps the last, vestiges of that incurable maternal love made me hesitate. "Let him come up." Ryan entered like a shadow of the man I had known. He was too thin, his eyes sunken, his hands trembling slightly. The compromised liver from months of inadequate diet and drinking had taken its toll. "Hi, Mom. I mean, Eleanor." "What do you want, Ryan?" He shrank at my tone. He sat on the edge of the sofa, as if he no longer had the right to be comfortable in the house where he grew up. I needed to see you. I'm in the hospital. Cirrhosis. The doctors say if I don't get a transplant." I waited for him to continue, but he just looked at his own hands. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. "And what do you expect from me? That I donate part of my liver? That I pay for the treatment? That I forgive you?" "I don't expect anything. I just needed to tell you that I understood. I finally understood." "Understood what?" "The weight of love. You carried me for 43 years, even knowing I wasn't your blood. And I plan to kill you for money." His voice broke. How does someone do that to the person who chose to be their mother? It was the first time he acknowledged my choice. For a moment I saw the 7-year-old boy who hugged me and promised a huge house, but the image quickly faded. "People do all kinds of things for money, Ryan. You taught me that." He nodded, defeated. He stood up to leave, staggering slightly. "Wait," I heard myself say. "The hospital treating you, is it Mount Sinai?" "Public hospital. I'm on the waiting list for a transplant." After he left, I spent hours looking out the window. At night, Edward came for dinner as he did 3 times a week. I told him about the visit. "What do you want to do?" he asked simply. "I don't know. Part of me wants to let him suffer the consequences. Another part, you're still his mother." Am I? I spent months convincing myself that I wasn't, that blood determines everything. But if that were true, I would never have taken that baby in my arms 43 years ago. Edward held my hand across the table. "Eleanor, you don't have to save him again. But if you decide to help, let it be on your terms, not out of guilt or obligation." That night, I couldn't sleep. Memories invaded. My thoughts, Ryan taking his first steps, his first day of school, the fevers that kept me awake entire nights. And then, the recent memories, him serving the poisoned wine, the laptop with searches about my death. By morning, I had made my decision. I went to the public hospital where Ryan was admitted. The smell of disinfectant and despair hit me as soon as I entered. I found him in a shared room with 3 other patients. "I came to do the compatibility tests," I announced without preamble. His eyes widened. "Mom! Eleanor, you don't have to." "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me, to end this cycle once and for all." The tests revealed partial compatibility, enough for a living donor transplant. The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks later. During this period, I established clear rules. "I will donate part of my liver, Ryan. After that, you'll leave my life definitively. No contact, no requests, no surprise appearances. This is my last act as your mother." He agreed without arguing. Melissa showed up once at the hospital, feigning concern, probably after some financial compensation. I sent her away with few words. "Your role in this farce is over. Get lost." Edward accompanied me at every step. On the day of the surgery, it was his face I saw before falling asleep, and the first I saw upon waking. "How do you feel?" he asked, caressing my hair. "Free," I replied, and it was true. Recovery was difficult. At 67, the body doesn't regenerate like before. But Edward was there, caring for me with a dedication I never received from Ryan. He cooked soups, changed bandages, read to me when pain kept me from sleeping. "Why do you do this?" I asked one afternoon, as he adjusted my pillows. "Because I choose to, just as you chose to raise Ryan. The difference is that my choice is reciprocated." 6 weeks after the surgery, I received news that Ryan had recovered well. I didn't visit him. I kept my word. That had been my last maternal act. One day, returning from a medical appointment, I found an envelope under the door. I recognized Ryan's handwriting. "I know I promised not to contact you, but I needed to write this. You gave me life 3 times. When you took me in as a baby, when you chose not to let me die on the trail, and now with your liver. I spent 43 years without understanding the weight of that love. Now I understand, too late. I will honor my promise and disappear. But know that, even undeserving, you will always be my mother. The only one I had. The only one who mattered." I tore the letter into small pieces and threw it in the trash. I didn't cry. There were no more tears for Ryan. Life with Edward deepened in ways I hadn't expected. We didn't marry. What for at this age? But we built a routine together. He sold his apartment and came to live with me on the Upper East Side. We transformed one of the bedrooms into a shared office where he managed his investments, and I finally wrote the memoirs I had always wanted to. We discovered simple pleasures, cultivating a garden in the backyard, cooking together, watching old movies. Sometimes acquaintances would ask about Ryan. My answer was always the same. "I don't have a son." Edward never questioned this response. He understood that some wounds heal better with distance. 1 year after the surgery, something unexpected happened. A young woman appeared at my door. She was about 25, brown hair, eyes that seemed strangely familiar. "Mrs. Eleanor, my name is Caroline. I'm your granddaughter." The shock left me speechless. I invited her in, served coffee, trying to process the information. "Ryan had an affair when he was 18, she explained. My mother got pregnant, but he disappeared. She raised me alone. Only recently did I discover who my biological father was." "And why did you seek me out?" "Because I discovered your story. What you did for him, even though he wasn't your biological son, and I thought maybe you would like to meet the granddaughter you don't know you have." I looked at that young woman searching for traces of Ryan, but what I saw was something else. An opportunity for redemption, not mine, but perhaps of fate itself. Does he know you sought me out? No, and I don't intend to tell him. From what I've discovered, he doesn't deserve either of us. I smiled for the first time in that conversation. You're wiser than your father ever was. Caroline began visiting regularly. She was a medical resident, intelligent, determined, nothing like Ryan. Sometimes during our Sunday lunches, I would observe her conversing with Edward about medicine and investments, and I felt something I thought I had lost forever: family pride. Life has these ironies, I commented to Edward one night. I spent 43 years raising someone who tried to kill me. And now, this young woman appears whom I didn't raise, but who shows more love and respect than Ryan ever had. Maybe it's the universe balancing itself, he replied. Or maybe true love always finds its way, even if by unexpected routes. And you? Have you ever realized how sometimes the family we choose is worth more than the family we have? On a Sunday afternoon, while Caroline was helping Edward in the garden and I was preparing lunch, I reflected on life's winding paths. The house I had almost lost was full again, not with lies and manipulations, but with genuine affection. My phone rang. Unknown number, I answered reflexively. Eleanor? It was Ryan's voice, hoarse, aged. I know I promised not to call, but... What? Need money. Another organ. No, I discovered I have a daughter, Caroline. Has she been visiting you? I looked through the kitchen window. Caroline was laughing at something Edward had said, the sun illuminating her young, hopeful face. I don't know any Caroline, I replied calmly. You must be mistaken. Please, I know I was wrong, but... Ryan, you no longer exist for me. If you have a daughter, that's your problem. But I doubt she's interested in meeting the man who abandoned her pregnant mother and tried to kill his own adoptive mother. I hung up before he could respond. I blocked the number. I returned to the kitchen, where lunch was waiting. Who was it? Edward asked, entering with Caroline. Wrong number, I replied, serving the salad. Let's eat before it gets cold. That afternoon, as we talked about Caroline's plans for her residency, and Edward told stories of his travels, I understood a fundamental truth. Blood may determine our biology, but it's our choices that define our family. I chose to love Ryan unconditionally for 43 years. He chose to betray me. Caroline chose to seek me out. Edward chose to stay. And me? I finally chose to live for myself. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that 7-year-old boy promising a huge house. The boy existed. The love I felt for him was real. But both died long before that trail in the Adirondacks. What I tried to kill that day was just the ghost of something that no longer existed. They say time heals all wounds. Lie. Time just teaches us to live with the scars. 3 years have passed since I definitively closed the door on Ryan. 3 years of peace, of discoveries, of a life I never imagined having at 70. Caroline became a constant presence in our lives. She completed her residency with honors, specialized in liver surgery, an irony that didn't go unnoticed. On Friday nights, she would appear with wine and hospital stories. She never mentioned Ryan, neither did I. On one of these nights, while we prepared dinner, she casually dropped, "Grandma, I'm thinking about getting married." The title caught me off guard. Grandma, so natural on her lips, so strange to my ears. "Don't call me Grandma," I responded automatically, a reflex from years of self-protection. Caroline stopped chopping tomatoes and stared at me. "Why not? That's what you are, my grandmother, the only true family I have." "Your father. My father is a stranger who shared DNA with me. You are who I chose as family." just as you chose Edward as Edward chose you. Family isn't about blood, Eleanor. You yourself proved that." The words hung in the air of the kitchen. Edward, who was listening from the living room, appeared at the door. "She's right, you know." I looked at them both. The granddaughter fate brought me, the companion life gave me. I felt the last walls I had built around my heart begin to crumble. Then, "Introduce me to this young man," I conceded, feigning irritation. "I need to evaluate if he's good enough for my granddaughter." Caroline's smile lit up the entire kitchen. The fiancé was a medical colleague, Andrew, a serious and dedicated young man. During the introductory dinner, I observed how he treated Caroline with respect, genuine admiration, love without possessiveness. Everything Ryan never demonstrated for anyone. "Approved," I declared at the end of the night, making everyone laugh. The wedding preparations threw me into a routine I had never experienced. Choosing flowers, tasting cakes, giving opinions on dresses. Caroline insisted I accompany her in every decision. "You're the only family I have on my side," she said while trying on the dress. "I need you there." "And your father?" The question escaped before I could contain it. Caroline adjusted the veil, observing herself in the mirror. "Ryan died 6 months ago. Fulminant cirrhosis. He couldn't get another transplant in time." Silence settled in the fitting room. I waited to feel something. Guilt, sadness, relief. Nothing came. Just an emptiness where pain used to be. "Did you go to the funeral?" "No, I didn't even know at the time. Melissa contacted me afterward, wanting money to pay for the expenses. I told her to look for his biological family." Caroline's coldness surprised and comforted me. She had inherited my ability to cut toxic ties. "Did he suffer at the end?" "Probably, but it's not our responsibility, Grandma. He made choices, lived with them, died with them." On the wedding day, while helping Caroline with the final details, she held my hands. "Thank you for being here, for being my family. Thank you for choosing me as your grandmother." The ceremony was beautiful, intimate. Edward accompanied me down the aisle as Caroline entered radiantly. In that moment, seeing her swear eternal love to someone who deserved her, I understood what I had lost and gained in this tortuous journey. I lost a son who was never really mine. I gained a granddaughter who chose to be mine. I lost 43 years waiting to be loved by someone incapable of loving. I gained a fulfilling life at 70. During the celebration, Edward pulled me to dance. His steps were careful, respecting my post-surgery limitations. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "That true love doesn't need to be earned. It simply exists, or it doesn't." "Did it take you 70 years to learn that?" "Some lessons cost dearly. Mine cost a liver and 43 years. We laughed together, turning gently on the dance floor. Around us, life celebrated its improbable twists. Months later, Caroline came to me with news. "I'm pregnant." The news hit me with unexpected force. A great-grandchild, a new generation free from the lies and manipulations that marked the previous ones. "It's a girl," she continued. "I want to name her Sophie. Wisdom in Greek, good choice. I want you to be part of her life, Grandma. I want her to grow up knowing that family is about choices, not obligations." I nodded, too emotional to speak. Edward squeezed my shoulder, silently sharing the moment. During Caroline's pregnancy, I reflected a lot on cycles and new beginnings. Sophie would be born into a family built on truths, however harsh they might be. There would be no secrets, manipulations, or impossible expectations. Just honest, imperfect, real love. A week before the birth, I found an old box in the attic. Photos of Ryan as a child. For a moment, I held the image of the 7-year-old boy. The innocent smile, the eyes still without malice. I kept the photo. Not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder that even the purest love can be corrupted when fed by lies. Sophie was born on a spring morning. When I held her for the first time, something completed itself in me. There was the living proof that true love transcends blood, time, hurts. "Hi, Sophie," I whispered. "I'm your great-grandmother. I have so much to teach you about choices." Caroline, exhausted but radiant, smiled from the hospital bed. "Tell her about unconditional love, Grandma, but also about boundaries, about when self-love needs to speak louder." "I will, when she's old enough to understand." Edward photographed everything, discreet tears in his eyes. My companion, my right choice, after so many wrong ones. Today, at 72, I look back without bitterness. Ryan existed, was loved, and chose a path that led to his destruction. I can't change that, but I can ensure that Sophie grows up knowing the difference between love and manipulation, between family and blood ties. On sunny afternoons, when Caroline leaves Sophie with us, Edward and I take her to the park. I watch my great-granddaughter chase butterflies, free and happy, and think of all the women I've been, the devoted mother, the planned victim, the vindictive survivor, the chosen grandmother. They all live in me, scars of a journey that brought me here. I wouldn't change anything. Each pain, each disappointment, each difficult choice prepared me for this moment. Sitting on a park bench beside the man I love, watching my great-granddaughter play. True love, I discovered late, doesn't demand constant sacrifice. It doesn't charge impossible prices. It doesn't manipulate or lie. It simply exists, grows, flourishes when it finds fertile soil. It took me 70 years to learn this, but the lesson was worth every tear. And you who have followed me to this point, what have you learned from my story? That love has limits, that family is chosen, that it's never too late to start over. Thank you for reaching the end. If this story touched you in some way, share it with someone who needs to hear that self-love sometimes is the greatest act of love we can offer the world. The sun sets on the New York horizon as I write these last words. Edward sleeps on the sofa, the newspaper forgotten in his lap. From the kitchen comes the sound of Caroline preparing dinner. Sophie draws on the floor, concentrated in her world of colorful scribbles. This is my family. Imperfect, improvised, chosen, and it is more than enough. End of story.